In this video, we will discuss about the equilibrium forces. So in relation with this one, I will incorporate your Newton's first law of motion. Your Newton's first law of motion was usually called as the law of inertia. But what is your inertia? Your inertia is the tendency of an object to resist changes in its states of motion. Inertia is a tendency of an object to resist changes. So therefore, our Newton's first law of motion is related with inertia. So this law of motion states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. So dyan pumapasok yung tinatawag nating equilibrium of forces. When there is no unbalanced force that would be put in a particle, let's say this is a particle at its weight, and what you call a normal force here. Since there will be no imbalanced force that would make this object move, therefore it will never move. Or let's say I have a particle, or a particle is moving at a constant velocity. Therefore, this particle will never stop unless there will be an imbalanced force that would make this particle change its velocity. So in our first lessons, we incorporate this velocity in acceleration. If your acceleration is 0, therefore we will have a constant velocity. And when there will be a constant velocity, therefore forever, that this particle ideally will move unless acted upon by an imbalanced force. So that is same true with equilibrium. In equilibrium of forces, meaning all your forces such as summation of f of x, or the forces at vertical, or the summation of forces at vertical axis, horizontal axis I should say, is equal to 0. And also the summation of our vertical axis, or our f of y, is equal to 0. Which means that the object will not move in either direction. So example of this one is, let us focus this in this figure. So if I have a particular force f of x here, let's say f of x of 1, and it is countered by another force here, let's say this is a force of friction f of x of 2, if this f of x of 1 will not have a greater force to be applied for your f of x of 2, which is your friction, this particle will never move. This is the law of inertia, the tendency of an object to resist changes in a state of motion, okay, or the state of rest. So in order for this to move, you must have a greater force x, okay. So if we would utilize this greater force x that would cause this object to move, therefore we would have our Newton's second law of motion, or the law of force and acceleration, or F is equal to ma. So but first let us understand the equilibrium of forces. The forces in a body is said to be in equilibrium if we know that the forces in vertical axis and horizontal axis is always equal to 0. In short, your summation of f of r is equal to 0. And also, the equilibrium, in equilibrium of forces, the body will not move or rotate. Pag sinabi natin hindi siya mag-rotate, there is no rotational motion, therefore, dyan pumapasok yung tinatawag nating summation of moment is equal to 0. So, what is a moment? A moment is the tendency of a body to move in a circular motion. Yan yung tinatawag nating torque. This moment is equal to the force or the perpendicular force or the force multiplied by its perpendicular distance. Okay. This moment will be further discussed on the other videos in this subject. So the conditions of equilibrium is your summation of f of x must be equal to 0, summation of f of y must be equal to 0, and of course there will be no rotational motion, therefore summation of m is equal to 0. The equilibrium force system is the body is said to be in equilibrium if the resultant of all forces acting on it is 0. So there are two major types of static equilibrium, namely transitional equilibrium and rotational equilibrium. This body, if you have an acceleration equals 0, therefore there will be an equal velocity of Vf and Vi, so therefore that is still in equilibrium. Basically because there is no force that would make the body stop. So dyan po ang pasok yung second law of motion natin. So your second law of motion, Newton's second law of motion, or your law of acceleration and force. Mathematically, your Newton's second law of motion can be summarized into an equation, summation of f is equal to ma. Or all the forces involved in the body is equal to its mass and its acceleration. Or the summation of f of x is equal to max, or the summation of forces at x direction is equal to the mass multiplied its acceleration at x-axis, and the summation of f of y at y direction is equal to mass multiplied by its acceleration at y-axis, and the summation of f of z or its z-axis, so multiplied by its acceleration on its z-axis. So take note that this is a vector. Yung acceleration natin and our force is a vector quantity. Okay? So therefore, pag gusto mong i-break down yan, kung ano yung summation of f of x mo is equal to your m multiplied by your acceleration at x-axis. Pag maalala yung projectile natin, kung paano yung isolve, parang ganoon lang din yung pagsosolve natin dito sa, or pagkakaintindi natin dito sa second law of motion natin, wherein the summation of your forces is equal to your mass multiplied by your acceleration. So a force upon an object cause its acceleration according to the formula net force equals mass multiplied by acceleration. So the acceleration of the object is directly proportional to the force and inversely proportional to the mass. Or yun yung tinatawag nating acceleration or anak is equal to father over mother. A is equal to F over M. So if a force, or so let's say a force that would be created in a particle would have create an imbalance force such that it will have let's say greater than its static friction, therefore this body will move. Upon moving this body, so therefore we will have your acceleration, And if you will have that acceleration, you are imposing the Newton's second law of motion, wherein your F is equal to your ma. Okay?